Welcome back to the channel, Crypto Trend Trader, with a quick update on Bitcoin. Before we get started, I'd like to remind you it's not financial advice. I'm not your financial advisor. These markets are extremely volatile, so please do your own research and trade responsibly. Alright, great. So we finally got the retest. Just like we were talking about, essentially, we were in this pattern right here, put in a head and shoulders, got the breakdown, measured move, found support on our bottom ascending trend line here. Essentially got the bounce off a couple nice wicks, came up here and put in our retest. We were expecting a move back up to at least the 618 or the 786. Got the 618 move, came back down, put in a higher low at the 382, and that's what we were talking about, how the purple fib is the predominant fib. So we essentially came down, it's from the top point here at 11,200 basically, and came all the way down to 10,150. Essentially that was the fib that was governing this movement pattern right here. From the bottom at the zero line, we came all the way back up to the 786, sold off from the 786, found support at the 0.5, attempted one more time back up to the 786, put in a depending if you're looking at the wicks or the candle body closes, basically put in a double top right here and then sold off and got the measured move from the head and shoulders pattern breakdown of the ascending support line, touch the bottom of our next ascending support line based on not just like the majority of the moves right here, but actually like this extra little stab, the little slingshot right here, the pullback before the move up. That lined up perfectly with our 236, so we had the zero line up to the 786, back down to the 236, got our pushback up to the 618, came back down to the 382. You may notice that's exactly what we talked about in the video. From the 382, we found some resistance at the 0.5, came back, and you'll see right here we touched the 382 a second time, but on candle body closes we put in a higher low. So we have a series, a low, a higher low, a higher low, and then depending if you want to count this as part of the macro or the micro of this move right here, we put in a third higher low, got the pushback up, and now we're putting in essentially a triple top pattern at the 786. Just like we talked about in the video, it is possible that we continue up here and take out this high right here, and actually all we need to do realistically is put in a lower high than the one right here to still be a internal retracement. As far as the green Fibonacci is concerned, we would essentially be coming to the top, selling back off to the 786, coming back up to the 236, which is the opposite of what we did on the purple one, coming back down to the 618, coming back up to the 236 again, back down to the 0.5, and now here we are back above the 236. Now if we came up here and double topped at the zero line all the way up here, that would be just basically a double top inside this micro move right here. Now if we took this out right here, essentially all we would have to do is continue up and just put in a lower high than we did back here. However, you'll notice the big red descending line right here. I do not think that we're going to be able to hold above that. That is the top portion of our descending broadening wedge. Now in the event that we do come down to the green line here, bounce all the way up, find support at the heart line, and then we come through here, get a confirmed candle close above here, retest, and then start continuation, I would get bullish on the situation, and I would consider this to be a breakout of the descending broadening wedge, in which case we would get a measure move, essentially just for like a rough measure move on this one. You know, we could get a nice move, honestly. You know, roughly something to this nature right here. Breakout, and then, you know, essentially come essentially come back up here to like that 12,750 range. I don't necessarily think that that's the most likely situation right now. I like to always go with the predominant trend and give you know, overall more strength to what's been happening. We have been in this descending broadening wedge, selling off, putting in a series of high, lower high, lower high. Now again, if we take this out right here, as long as we don't take this out, we're still putting in just another lower high, although I don't necessarily think that that's as likely, but we could essentially put in and again, we talked about this in our past video, we could essentially come in you know, a little higher than our descending broadening wedge line that we currently have in place, and essentially get that double top move right here like we discussed. Once again, not necessarily as likely to happen. If we come down here and look at the jewel thief, you'll notice that, and it's very hard to see because the green is inside of the buy signal. We're at the bottom right here. We're getting the cross to the upside between the blue and the purple, but the knife, the red and green, has come all the way back up here to the area where we typically top out in. And it did that all just on the initial buy signal. So the likelihood of a powerful continuation move is very unlikely. Had we gotten more of a slow move at the initial cross, I think we would be more likely to get that continuation. But in all reality, all this looks like to me is just, the pattern continuing to play out exactly like we discussed. And for those in the group, we talked about this as well. What we've been expecting was for the histogram to come down here, find support on the slope line, and then get a move back up to the upside. You'll notice we did in fact do that. And now look at what we've done. We have put in a lower point on the indicator oscillator, and we have put in a substantially higher point on price action. So essentially we took a bunch of energy to get to right here, and now we took almost no energy to get substantially higher. So what that tells me is the likelihood of continuation on this move is very unlikely. What's more likely to happen is for people to sell into this right here. And then get continuation to the downside. Now, we don't have to necessarily break the pattern. We could just come back down here to the 0.5 in green or one of these other fibs and essentially find support and get a continuation inside this pattern here. But to me, what it looks like is going to happen is it looks like we're going to put in a situation like this where we top out at the top of our descending broadening wedge and then get a large sell-off followed by continuation. But again, I always like to give I like to give the nod to the predominant trend. The predominant trend has been down. We have been selling off since August 17th, so middle of the way through August. So, a couple months of basically selling off. The likelihood of what we're going to do is continue to sell off. Now, in the event that we do get the breakout here, consolidation, I would expect continuation to the upside. I think a lot of that is going to be based on what the stock markets do, what the elections start to look like, basically like how things are going as far as like stimulus and whatnot. The economy is obviously getting worse by the day. The CV is starting to have, swell ups and more cases and more deaths. And, although there is like some optimism with what's going on with the big prez and all that, and everybody talking about how this is not that serious, nothing has changed in a positive way as far as I'm concerned right now. It's still this exact same situation, and this is just a liquidity event, an opportunity for people to unload their positions or make a small profit on the little micro moves that have been taking place. But overall, these markets are extremely stagnant, and we are basically just range trading inside of a tightening range. At which point in time, I would expect a break to one direction or the other. But again, I'm going to give the nod to the to the bears on this one. This looks like to me, the large candles, when they happen like that, are typically squeezes. When you get a move up like this and then slingshots in the opposite direction, and we're basically just taking out all the late longers here and get that big move right there as we hit all the stop losses. And essentially, I think that's exactly what this is too. We broke down from this pattern, got the retest. People started shorting the retest right here, jumped the gun, and then we sell off slightly, and then all of a sudden we just take out all those stop losses, take out all the late shorters, and then finally we can get the actual move, the actual continuation, etc. Just a quick look at Ethereum. It's the exact same situation. We basically had this ascending trend line. We were bouncing off continually, and then we sold down from it, and now here was our retest, just like we discussed. Came back up to the 89 moving average, which is acting as resistance right now. We did not get as powerful of a stab on the knife, and we were unable to save the trend back here on the histogram. But essentially, it's the same thing happening here. We're getting the move back up, and it looks like we're getting ready to get rejected off of the slope line, at which point in time I would expect continuation to the downside, and essentially this move to be used to slingshot the price in the opposite direction. So this looks like a big short squeeze to me, and I'm sure plenty of people are buying into it, expecting continuation. Let's look at the Dixie. Essentially, dollar index is just doing exactly what we discussed. We basically found our bottom point here, and whether you want to call this a head and shoulders playing out, whether you want to call it a cup and handle playing out, we essentially are getting the measure move from the breakout of our neckline right here. We got the 1, we got the 2, we got the 3. The 4 came down and found support at the point of the 1 on longer time frames. So we basically got 1, 2, 3, 4 break, retest, and then we should get confirmation continuation. You'll notice that we basically found found resistance exactly at the 89, and now here we are finding support exactly at the 50, and our next target is still the 200, as well as the blue ascending resistance line that I would expect us to hit in line with the 200, and then sell off for a retracement of the entire 5-wave structure, at which point in time we would have to see what happens there, but I am expecting more continuation to the upside, as I do think the dollar is going to strengthen in the short to mid time frames. Switch over to SPY here. You'll notice that we essentially got up to a new high, came down, found resistance at the previous high from our last little run up right here, and then we sold back off, found support at the bottom of our little arcing trend line right here, our little support that we had, and then we came back up, found resistance at that same high again, at which point in time I would expect us to sell back off. Now, could we get a inverse head and shoulders right here, and then continuation back up, break of the neckline, and then a move back to the top of the range? Of course we could. That's actually what I'm anticipating. But in the event that the market starts to get weak, or we get some kind of crazy news catalyst or whatever, I would expect us to sell back off and essentially either double bottom or take this out and put in a new low, eventually looking for our continuation sell-off, and basically to hit our key fib levels here. And you'll notice that this is slightly moved because I did still have my target up here for a slightly higher high, which is what I'm expecting still, but again, that's not confirmation. And at this point in time, we are at the top of this extremely bearish pattern, this massive distribution pattern that's been taking place, where we've been putting in continual higher highs and continual higher lows. It's like that megaphone or inverse flag, but essentially I would expect us to sell off here in a powerful way, and then basically, yeah, that'll do it for today. Gonna keep it relatively short. Also, I did want to switch over here real quick and take a look at our futures chart, basically for the CME for Bitcoin. This has been extremely powerful and continual. We've had this drawn for quite a while inside of the group, and essentially what has been taking place is rather than the sideways triangle or symmetrical triangle that spot markets are showing, this is much more clear, as we have basically a flat top here and a ascending bottom. This is typically a bullish pattern, and the measure move breakout from this would take us back up to this range of 11.8, which was essentially like the key resistance previously from our pattern. So the measure move essentially right here, breakout. I'm not saying it's going to happen right now. I'm not saying it's going to happen ever, but based on this pattern right here, and again, these markets have been basically like much more powerful and like a leading indicator for the actual spot market. The measure move up here would essentially lead us up to that resistance right there. I don't think that it's unrealistic to think that we could get a bullish break out of this scenario based on what oscillator indicators I'm checking out down here. Definitely looks like we could get continuation, but once again, I always give the nod to the predominant trend, and any move up from here would essentially just take us up, measure move, and just put in another lower high into our series right here as well. So that's not going to change anything on the macro as far as I'm concerned, although a pushback up to nearly 12,000 would be a nice little like 10% move on Bitcoin. So but once again, you can see the power of this trend line and the importance of obviously taking a look at not only spot markets but also paying attention to the CMEs as well, as clearly we have never seen this strong of a correlation between spot and or Bitcoin rather, and traditional markets. I mean, it's crazy how much they're moving together. But in all reality, we were just talking about this again in the group. Pay attention to the difference in what's happening with these different assets. Fundamentally, this should be the #1 strongest time for Bitcoin. It was literally created a decade ago for this exact situation, when the monetary system starts to break down and people look for an alternative system or a hedge to get away from the system. And Bitcoin is at essentially 50% of its all-time high. We are halfway to the all-time high from zero. We're at like 10,000, 11,000, the all-time high was 20,000. So basically, well, 22 on futures. But as where the traditional markets are at their all-time highs, especially tech sector breaking all-time highs, gold is retesting all-time highs, and yet crypto is essentially like a fraction of its all-time high. So whatever you want to say about fundamentals, whatever you want to say about hoping, wishing, lottery tickets, the future of Bitcoin or whatever is not necessarily bearish, but short term and medium term. And, at this point in time, we are putting in a series of lower highs on over 3 year, basically like bearish consolidation or, consolidation, whatever you want to call it, pattern. Obviously that is not a bullish sign to me. If, traditional markets are making all-time highs and you're going to say that the money printer go burr and, they're devaluing currency and all that. Why is real estate at all-time highs? Why is stock market at all-time highs? Why is gold at all-time highs? And yet crypto has the strongest fundamentals for this given situation, in line with gold, obviously. And yet we're nowhere near all-time highs. With all the quote-unquote money printing, with all the stimulus that's gone out, if people were actually bullish and believed in this asset, why are total trash coins and, decentralized DeFi trash, coins named after food, garbage that just pops up overnight, why are they making all-time highs? Why are they selling off 75% and 90%? And yet Bitcoin is still at 50% of its all-time highs. And again, I don't want to be bearish in this space. I'm obviously a Bitcoin and crypto believer, especially like decentralized finance. But the truth is, I go and trade and invest based on the charts, not wishes and dreams and fundamentals. So there you have it for today, guys. Another quick one. I'm starting to feel a little bit better, but still very sick. For everybody else out there that's going through this, going into the winter months eventually here and starting to cool off a little bit and everything, make sure you're taking those vitamins, make sure you're staying healthy, make sure you're getting out exercising, and you're taking care of yourself, eating right, and getting some actual like good fuel for your body in the same way that you put the good fuel in your vehicles. It's important that we do take care of ourselves because with everything happening right now and going into the winter months here in the United States, I think we're going to see more and more cases, more and more spread. Not to mention our regular flu is going to start kicking in and all that stuff. And last thing you want to be doing is getting sick at the least opportune time, especially when, in all reality, certain people might be able to get like experimental cocktails and drugs and all this stuff that's going to potentially like help you feel amazing a couple days later. But we don't all live and work in the White House. We are not all millionaires and most important people out there. So make sure that you are taking care of yourself because you do not want to be on the wrong end of what's potentially going to happen here in the near future. So there you have it for today, guys. Don't mean to be grim or negative. Just want people to have a realistic view. And, I just want to be like that one guy who tells it how it is and doesn't just pump you up when we see a little candle here on price action. Let's keep in mind that, basically this move from the bottom to the top is like 3%. It's literally nothing. It's breadcrumbs in this space. It's nothing to really get excited about, although, obviously I do use it as a great opportunity to sell some spot into and, use that liquidity, use that solvency to my advantage. There you have it, guys. Make sure you like and subscribe, and I'm Crypto Trend Trader, and I'm out of here.